Yeah. Blackjack. Life is like a game of cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Yeah. Blackjack. To play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Hit the thumbs up button, like the channel, tell a friend, and most importantly, if you're new to the channel and want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and hit that bell notification. I'm going to jump right into it. This question right here is from a young lady from Denver, Colorado. And the question is DELRAY, how was it that Jimmy Iovine was able to bump Tupac's royalty rate up from 12% to 18% after he died? And how was it that he actually wiped away the $4.9 million in debt that Death Row said that Tupac owed them? That's a great question. But before I get into that, the answer in that question, I want to give you a comparison to how Interscope did business so that you understand the truth and fact in which I come to bring to you today. Remember Nelly Furtado, right? Nelly Furtado was actually signed to Interscope, right? But Jimmy Iovine allowed her to go under Timberland's label, right? But she still was an Interscope artist, right? Remember The Game, the plaques that I have back on the wall actually sample my Tupac record. Game's debut album, the documentary, did 5 million, right? Game was actually under Aftermath, right? Aftermath distributed through Interscope, but then Dr. Dre and them let Game basically go under G Unit. You know what I mean? And work with G Unit from that perspective. Not that Game was on G Unit, but he let them work under G Unit and that whole thing. And you know, they created a masterpiece, if you will. The same thing for Tupac. Tupac, once again, was signed to, when he went to jail, Tupac's contract stated that he was Out the Gutter Records / Interscope. Period. Bottom line. When Tupac got out of jail, his contract with Interscope was not voided out. There's no other contract that you will see from that time until the time that Tupac died. There's no other contract other than that one that he had with Interscope. Period. Point blank. Right? Therefore, that's why that was. But Tupac, when he was released from prison, right, was allowed by Interscope, who distributed Death Row, to then go and record under Death Row. Period. Point blank. Anything else that you hear in regards to that is a lie. You need to know that. And you will hear nobody or see nobody bring any paperwork or any contract that Tupac signed with Death Row Records, or any paperwork saying that Interscope assigned Tupac's rights to Death Row Records. It never happened. Period. Right? So now, let me get into the fact of the matter in regards to the royalty rate, right? How was Jimmy Iovine able to allow Tupac's mom to negotiate with her in regards to Tupac's royalty rate? Why did that happen, and how could Jimmy Iovine have that power and not Suge Knight per se? The fact of the matter is like I told you before, what they were basing that on, that 12% royalty rate, was Tupac's initial record deal that he signed with Interscope, right? In November of 1993, right? When everything switched over. So now, that's how that's where the 12% initially comes from, I'm sorry. And so when you get into the 18%, the reason that even came up as any kind of conversation was the fact that when Tupac died, after Afeni went through his paperwork, she found that handwritten agreement, right? And then she, in turn, used that to basically, or should I say, as her legal precedence to file a lawsuit against Death Row. But she was going to sue everybody, but it was against Death Row. Based on that, she didn't know about all of the other stuff that Tupac, all of his other contractual obligations and so on and so forth. That's what she was using as her legal right to defend her son and try to obtain the rights to his music, as well as be paid for the music that was sold, right? So now there was that 18% that Tupac had agreed to if he signed a record contract with Death Row. That never happened. That never happened because they already had the contract in place. Jimmy Iovine them over at Interscope. It was never going to happen. Period. All right. So what Jimmy Iovine did was, you know what? Okay, I'll bump up the 12 to 18%. Now, how could you do that if you got the power to do that? Yeah. Why? Because he has the contract, number one, signed to Tupac, out the gutter Interscope. Number two, right? They collecting all of the record sale money and paying the mechanical royalties and paying the royalties for album sales and all of that. Not only that, right? Jimmy Iovine them had a publishing deal with Tupac. Warner Brothers did, right? Think about that. So now, the only person that got paid when Suge Knight and Death Row filed bankruptcy was Tupac, his estate. The initial check was $75,000, and there was supposed to be another check for $57,000 that came in later. Right? Now, understand, you have the record contract, out the gutter, Interscope. You have the publishing deal with Interscope, Warner Brothers. All of that is over on that side where they're paying royalties, they're collecting money from album sales, and so on and so forth. This is the business, right? Death Row paid no royalties to Tupac. Death Row had no rights to Tupac's publishing, the things that truly bring in income. Death Row didn't even account for the record sales. All of that stuff came from Interscope. So that's how they were able to bring Tupac's royalty rate up from 12 to 18%. Now, we jump into the $4.9 million that Death Row alleged that Tupac owed them after he died, right? How was Jimmy Iovine able to do that? The fact of the matter is in the bail agreement, you would see the word that I showed you, the expenditures, right? Tupac wasn't being paid the royalties right then and there because he was back. When he came out of jail, Tupac owed $2 million. Based on the 1.4 that they had put up for the bail, Interscope and Atlantic, and based on the $600,000 that they had gave Tupac to help fight his case and other cases and things like that when he was in prison. So he's $2 million down, right? So he's not receiving regular royalties. He can't. And it's like, so if they went with the normal accounting, they just didn't want to do that. What they would do is they would give him expenditures, a weekly or monthly stipend, and, you get the cars, all of those things. But all of those things were basically going to be accounted for and dealt with as expenditures. So when the royalty checks came in from All Eyes on Me, when they tallied it up, the first thing that would be deducted would be that $2 million, would be all of the other stuff that they put up money for, right? So now, when Tupac died and Afeni sued him, Death Row basically said that Tupac owed them something like $9 million, right? And so what Jimmy Iovine did was they did their own assessment and accounting, and they came up with a whole different number, and basically they forgave Tupac and his estate for the $4.9 million because he didn't really owe that. Remember, I told you there was stuff that they were trying to charge Tupac for, Miss Chalet's Range Rover, apartments. They were paying for David Kenner's Malibu, the mansion, all of these other things that Tupac wasn't aware that he would have to pay for, in life. But in death, he was charged for those things, right? And so when it came time to sit down and really, go through the numbers and things like that, That's the reason why they forgave the $4.9 million, right? So yeah, that's the reason why all of that had happened. And so when you understand that, you understand the business, not the rhetoric, not the sideshow, you know what I mean? Not the lies, not the, people just coming out saying stuff just to say it. They know you're not going to do no research. So it's just believe me, you know what I mean? I don't want you to believe me. Like I said, all of these are facts are backed by paperwork and documents, and like I said, if somebody's saying something to you from now on in regards to Tupac, right? If you know that they probably weren't there, ask for some paperwork, ask for some documentation. You know what I mean? Because like I said, for me, I shared my time, my days, and when we saw each other and it was all good and so on and so forth, and that's basically it. Tupac was on death row for 11 months. A lot of the people now that talk about Tupac didn't really know Tupac personally. And he didn't deal with them like that. As much as they want you to think that he did. He didn't. Period. And so the big picture is paperwork, documentation. Those are the only things that are legal and binding that you can really say that's concrete and substantive. All the rest of that stuff is some stuff that people saying. Like Tupac say, they trading war stories is what they doing. You know what I mean? And like I said, most importantly of all is that Tupac's situation is now in order, with his estate and so on and so forth. From that perspective right now, they're in court right now. His sister is basically fighting with the executive of the estate, Tom Wiley. But, for the most part, they got all of what they needed to get back and so on and so forth. And so it is what it is. So basically, that's why the 12 went to the 18, percentage in the royalty rate. And that's how Jimmy Iovine was able to forgive the $4.9 million that Death Row said that Tupac owed, because he really didn't owe it. And Tupac was actually in the green. He wasn't in the red when he died. After All Eyes on Me, he was actually in the green, and he was owed money. As you see, when Jimmy Iovine basically forgave that 4.9, he in turn, check it out, he 4.9, right? Like I told you, they said 9 million. He then gave Afeni $3 million in cash. The estate, he gave, after forgiving the 4.9, he gave her $3 million in cash, and then promised another $2 million later on after that. So that basically tallies up to 9.5. Is that 9.4? Right? Come on now. 5, 4, 9.4 million. So basically, it proves that Tupac was actually owed that 9 million that they said he initially owed Death Row. So it was the other way around. So the shenanigans and the malfeasance and the mismanagement that was going on over at Death Row, basically, that's the reason why that was. Your boy DELRAY, straight gang.